We have some news from the science world today. On January 27th, scientists at Fukushima's nuclear power plant, reactor number 2, detected an unprecedented level of radiation inside the nuclear power plant. About 6 times more radiation than was detected immediately after the nuclear disaster there in 2011. This radiation was so intense that cameras that the scientists put inside of the reactor to detect this radiation were effectively burned up. These are the highest radiation levels that have been recorded here since the disaster, and the scientists are stumped as to why this level of radiation has risen so much. One of the hypotheses is that the nuclear fuel, which has gotten so hot, burned through the metal ground of the reactor and is leaking into the ground near the Fukushima power plant. In 2011, there was an earthquake and a tsunami which struck Japan's eastern coast, basically crippling the nuclear power plant and causing a release of extremely radioactive water and gas into the environment. The effects on the water contamination around Fukushima were absolutely horrifying. The officials at the Tokyo Electric Power Company released 100,000 tons of water out of this power plant, radioactive water, into the ocean to make room for more radioactive water, which was more radioactive than this water, to be put into those holding tanks. Now, what do they expect they were going to do with that water that they put into the holding tanks? Well, apparently they just released it into the ocean again. So now we have these releases which are happening constantly and have been happening constantly since 2011 into the ocean of highly radioactive water. Now, this is having dangerous effects on the sea life and on the people of Japan who consume that sea life. As you can see here are some fish that they've been catching off the eastern coast of Japan, and these fish have these tumors on them. They have cancerous growths inside their mouths, and these fish are going to the market and people are eating them. And you can imagine that from that there would be some health effects, as well as from the contaminated soil, the contaminated grass, and the contaminated groundwater that surrounded the Fukushima power plant. Some alarming statistics provided by the World Health Organization show that residents and infants, mostly in the Fukushima prefecture, have a 70% higher chance of developing thyroid cancer. Another alarming statistic reported by the WHO shows that 36% of kids who were born in Fukushima after the nuclear disaster were born with abnormal cysts and growths on their thyroid glands. Now, the doctors maintain that this may or may not be related to the radiation fallout that fell over this region in Japan, but that seems pretty abnormal. 36% of kids being grown with these kind of growths in their thyroids, and this is only in Fukushima prefecture. This isn't happening elsewhere in Japan. And you know there's something wrong there. You know that these babies have been exposed to some type of poison or some type of level of toxicity. TEPCO wants to clean up the site by they want to start the cleanup in 2021 when they're able to get most of the radiation away from the power plant. But these levels that they've been reading inside the power plant are seriously doubting that the company is going to be able to go in and clean this mess up. Either way, this is supposed to take 50 years for these people to clean up the mess here, and they don't know exactly when they're going to start. If we're going to use this technology for energy uses, well, we have to tell ourselves, is this really worth it? Is it really worth risking the release of so many toxic substances into the environment? And is it worth poisoning populations and the sea life with radiation? I don't think so. I think we need to phase out of this kind of dirty energy that has the potential to cause so much damage to the environment, and phase into cleaner energies such as solar, tide energy, which would work pretty well in Japan, and wind energy and other types of energy, because radiation doesn't go away. This stuff has a half-life of 50,000 years, which means it's going to be radioactive for another 100,000 years.